This One's Wife, George Michael, How It's Done. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Well, after hearing all about This One's Wife and her unpleasant behaviours with regard to her father and the exploitative behaviours of Katie Price, I thought you deserved something of a palate cleanser by way of a comparison with an individual that demonstrated that he was an empath and how he went about things. As you know, This One's Wife utilises a facade of kindness, empathy and helpfulness. She regularly trots out the mantra from Archwell, show up, do good. Her narcissism compels her to believe that she is a good person. This is the hallmark of the middle range type A narcissist. We have plenty of evidence to demonstrate that she is not a kind and good person, but rather a narcissist. Whenever she does anything, charitable or philanthropic, we have to hear about it. PR puff pieces go out, the world is told. Because if that doesn't happen, what's the point of doing it? She only engages in charitable activity, driven by her narcissism. Namely, she does it to assert control over the audience, draw fuel from them by way of a response, manage her facade, and also utilise it for a residual benefit, for instance, the utilisation of Archwell's funds for expenditures. Now, have a listen to a complete contrast to the self-absorbed narcissistic behaviour of This One's Wife. George Michael was a global icon, whose life was as tumultuous as it was triumphant. He rose from North London obscurity to stadium-filling stardom in the 1980s, only to then grapple with addiction and legal troubles and personal losses in later years. His death on Christmas Day 2016 at the age of 53 from heart failure sent shockwaves through the music world, prompting tributes that celebrated not just his artistry, but a quieter, more profound aspect of his character, which was an unwavering commitment to anonymous generosity. While George Michael's flamboyant stage persona and headline-grabbing escapades often dominated the narrative, it was his secret acts of kindness, many of which remained hidden until after his passing, that truly defined his humanity. One of the most poignant threads in George Michael's hidden benevolence was his support for fertility struggles, a cause that resonated with his own unfulfilled dreams of fatherhood amid personal tragedies. In 2008, Lynette Gillard appeared on the British game show Deal or No Deal, tearfully explaining to host Noel Edmonds how she and her husband could not afford the £15,000 needed for IVF treatment. The audience watched as she shared her desperation for a child after years of heartbreak. Unbeknownst to her, George Michael was watching from home. The next day, Channel 4 received an anonymous call. A donor pledged the exact amount to cover her full treatment costs. Lynette went on to conceive and give birth to a son, whom she named Seth Logan George Hart in subtle honour of the mystery benefactor, although she only learned Michael's identity years later. In 2016, when TV producer Richmond Osmond tweeted about the incident following the singer's death. "I was floored," Lynette later told reporters. "He didn't want thanks, he just wanted to make a difference." This wasn't a one-off. Just a year earlier, in 2007, another woman, Jo Maidment, had bared her soul on This Morning, a television programme that was quite popular in the UK, where she discussed the emotional and financial toll of failed IVF attempts. Again, George Michael tuned in, moved by her story of mounting debts and shattered hopes. He anonymously funded her next round of treatments, leading to the birth of her daughter, Betsy. The gesture remained shrouded until after his death, when Jo received a bouquet of flowers at her home with a card revealing the donor with love from George Michael. The inscription was simple, almost shy, underscoring his aversion to fanfare. "He gave us the most precious gift, our family," Jo reflected in a 2017 interview, emphasising how George Michael's intervention came at a time when she felt utterly alone. These parallel IVF donations, revealed in the wake of 2016 obituaries, highlight a recurring motif: George Michael's radar for women's silent battles with infertility, perhaps echoing his own regrets over a life without children. Equally revealing are the spontaneous encounters with strangers that dotted George Michael's later years, encounters where his empathy overrode celebrity caution. In one oft-repeated tale from the mid-2000s, he was sat in a quiet London cafe nursing a coffee incognito when he overheard a woman at the next table sobbing into her phone. She was drowning in debt, her voice breaking as she detailed eviction threats and unpaid bills to a friend. Without a word, George Michael slipped a cheque for £25,000, about $32,000 at the time, to the waitress, instructing her to deliver it only after he'd left. No names, no strings. The woman, whose identity remains private, crumpled in disbelief upon receiving it, her tears shifting from despair to dazed joy. The story surfaced in 2016 via a tweet from a cafe regular who pieced it together posthumously, corroborated by the waitress in a Daily Mail interview. He just smiled and said, "Pass on my best." That was George, gone before the fuss. The cafe check wasn't isolated. It mirrored another impulse from around the same era. While posing as George, a nondescript regular at a high-end bar, George Michael chatted with a young barmaid who confided her struggles as a student nurse buried under tuition loans. As he left, he tipped her £5,000 in cash, enough to wipe out her debts, slipping away before she could react. She only connected the dots after his death, when news of his bar visits emerged. Philanthropy, on a grander scale, formed the backbone of his secrecy, with charities crediting him for survival they could not disclose whilst he was alive. Take Childline, the UK's lifeline for abused children. George Michael channeled all royalties from his haunting 1996 ballad Jesus to a Child, a tribute to his late partner Anselmo, directly to the organisation, amassing millions over 2 decades. Founder Esther Ranson revealed in 2016 that these funds, plus unpublicised cash infusions, kept Helpline staffed during lean years. He was adamant: no press, no plaques. It was his way of honouring Anselmo's memory without the world's gaze. Similarly, the Terence Higgins Trust, combating HIV/AIDS, benefited from proceeds of his 1991 duet Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me with Elton John, a gesture George Michael repeated annually without fanfare. Post-death disclosures showed these were not sporadic. He was a silent guardian, as one trustee put it, funneling his wealth from hits into harm reduction. His Easter ritual with London's Capital Radio further exemplifies this pattern. For over a decade, starting in the early 2000s, George Michael would phone in anonymously each Easter, pledging £100,000 to sponsor a needy child, covering surgeries, therapies or holidays. DJ Mick Brown, who fielded the calls, kept the donor's identity under wraps until 2016, describing George Michael's gravelly voice as instantly recognisable but always humble. These gifts, totalling hundreds of thousands of pounds, touched dozens of families, their stories emerging in a 2017 BBC special as parents wept over the Easter angel. Beyond checks and calls, George Michael rolled up his sleeves for the invisible crises. In the 2000s, he volunteered incognito at a North London homeless shelter, serving meals and sorting donations alongside unsuspecting staff. Emmeline Moore, fellow volunteer, recalled in a 2016 Guardian piece how George arrived weekly, chatting about music while folding blankets, only asking that no one alert the press. He said, "If they know it's me, it'll ruin the magic," she shared. His cover held until after his death, when shelter logs and volunteer rosters confirmed the visits. This hands-on humility extended to smaller gestures, like anonymously funding a Christmas tree for his Goring-on-Thames village in the 1990s, or stopping in a 1993 downpour to change a flat tyre for Mary Ryan, an Irish office worker stranded near Sony Studios. He was soaked, joking about his pop star mechanic skills, but he wouldn't take a penny, Ryan told The Sun in 2017. Healthcare workers, whom Michael viewed as unsung warriors, received special reverence, a nod to the NHS nurses who comforted his mother in her final days. In 2006, still raw from a 1997 passing, he staged a free concert at London's Camden Roundhouse exclusively for 5,000 NHS staff. Despite a nagging cold, he performed his hits later admitting to nurse Sally Lyons his nerves at singing for real heroes. The event, kept low-key, was revealed in full only in 2018 memoirs by attendees, who described George Michael's backstage chats as therapy sessions for exhausted frontline workers. In death, his secrecy became his loudest statement. No opulent foundations bore his name. Instead, his will directed £97.8 million to causes like Childline and HIV research, with clauses ensuring privacy. The fact is, George Michael was an empath, and he demonstrated his compassion and caring by showing up and doing good, but not needing a TV crew, by showing up and doing good and not needing a PR puff piece in Cosmopolitan, People magazine, or Town and Country. He showed up but didn't want anybody to know that it was him. He did good and didn't need anybody to know that it was him that was doing the good. A marked and stark contrast with the behaviour of this one's wife. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.